Hey guys, Sophie from Witchy Wheelin'. I'm in my office right now rather than outside. Um, there's a special topic that I wanted to talk about. Um, so, this is in regards to the process that I've personally been going through with unmasking with newly being diagnosed as autistic. And a topic could come up based on a person's life experience in one of the groups that I've joined to try to get more familiar with this process and people going through it, those kinds of connections. And I brought up something that I don't feel like is talked about enough. It's not addressed. And that is the process of grief with this. Um, don't mind my hair. Sorry. Microphone here to make it as clear as I can. Let's get that out of the way. So the reason why I want to bring this up is that as a whole, like across the world, our societies do not do well with acknowledging, addressing, and walking through grief. And it started out as we pretty much only associated it with the death of somebody that's close to us. Obviously, that makes sense, right? I mean, come on, it's a huge loss. What we fail to realize is that grief is experienced at any point that we feel a significant loss. And that's not by way of what somebody even socially thinks is a significant loss. This is how it feels to the individual. And you will go through those stages of grief, just as if you physically lost somebody to death. There's going to be nuances depending on each situation, of course, but it's grief. Now, there's two levels I want to talk about here. And the first level is going to be what you go through personally. And it's something that like I'm going through. And I'm not at every stage because my denial stage has been a long time coming, and this comes with the curiosity and all of that, and that's typically the first stage, right? And then there's the anger part, which I've also gone through in that process of discovering who I am and what that means. um, then you go through the bargaining stage, and for me personally, I feel like this comes out in working through imposter syndrome. And then, of course, something goes on when it comes to my stimming or reaction or overstimulation that brings me right back to the place of, yeah, this is legit. Then you've also got the depression stage. And that's where I feel like so many of us can also get stuck, even more so than anger. Then lastly, acceptance, right? And it's not a fluid thing. Those sound like they're 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But in reality, when it comes to the healing process, nothing's linear. And so that must be kept to the forefront, especially for those of us who do think with the neurodivergent mind that things aren't exact and this process is not exact. It's an ebb and flow. It's going to come out here, it's going to come over here, it's going to skip this step and go back to this step and repeat this step. That's the process of healing. Okay. So for myself, what I'm realizing and where this kind of hurts personally is going through unmasking, and so many of us feeling like, why can't I do what I used to do? And it's the loss of that resilience that you think you've always had, that loss of resilience, and that toughness, the I can do anything attitude, which is a great thing to have, but also can be toxic in this arena specifically. So I'm going through the fact that I can no longer be as resilient as I used to be. But it's okay, because my resiliency is really my mask that did nothing but hide my misery for years. And I hid it not just from other people, but from myself as a high masker. There's no way, right? There was pride that I had in being able to do what I've done, to care for the families that I've had, to walk through life as I have, to go through hardship after hardship after hardship. For seemingly like no reason. Like what the hell, right? This is ridiculous. I mean, I've only got one or two people that have been around me for all my life that literally can't believe how many obstacles that I've had to go through. But what I'm realizing now is that the entire time I wasn't even myself. I was playing a character I was told I should play because this is how life goes. Not to mention all the other domino things that come with that when it comes to PDA, rejection sensitivity, and all that stuff that goes completely dismissed, and everything gets bucketed into just being over dramatic or highly sensitive, and that's it. Lame, right? But there's a second part to this that I want to address more than anything, because there's going to be a lot of people out there who can address how they feel about it and their process and what they're going through. And I'm very glad that there's a lot of people that are willing to put it out on the line like this. But it's how it does affect those around us. We are going to experience a lot of heat as late diagnosed people who have highly masked. And there is, and usually there is a negative response once we expose ourselves to those, especially those who have been around us the longest, that are closest to us and feel they know us the best. It's going to be met with, denial, anger, bargaining, depression, then acceptance. That's called grief. They're expressing it to you. Where it gets compounded and it's hard is we're already going through our own process as a late diagnosed autistic, ADHD, or whatever your neurodivergence is. But we then, because this is a big deal, and we have every right to be focused on ourselves, and we need to be, because we've already spent years completely negating who we are. I mean, we've so many years gone, needed, but they're gone, and it's our time to focus on us now. Okay, focus on ourselves. But that does not negate the fact that the people around you and feel that they have known you the best, that do love you, are going to feel blindsided and like they suddenly don't know you, that this has to be fake, something that can be gotten rid of. Why would you do this to me? Now you're the one who's being two-faced, right? And we do need to take a step back and understand that the people around us are going to have to go through their own process, their own grief, because for them, it is also a loss of the person that they thought they knew. I mean, we can experience grief over a job loss. That's completely functional. That shouldn't have any sort of personal love impact and all that stuff, but yet we do, because it's something we take pride in, right? So if you can experience grief over something like a job loss, you need to understand you're going to experience grief with any sort of loss. And you need to allow for it. You ignore it, you hurt yourself. Period. There is no ifs, ands, or buts about that. That's burying emotions that turns into trauma that then comes out in reactive, negative ways later on. It shapes your behavior in a bad way. Because why? It's trauma being ignored. And grief is a big one, And we do not give it the justice it deserves and the processing time that it deserves either. So not only as somebody who's unmasking, needing to give yourself the grace and forgiveness of grief, of letting go of the person you thought you were, you need to allow the people around you to do the same. And yes, hard conversations need to be had. Arguments can come into play. And guess what? You might even lose people around you, whether it's family or friends. That's okay too, because this is a new stage in life. And if somebody's not meant to be a part of that stage of your life, then they shouldn't be. There's no reason to force it either. It is then time to move on. And they need to deal with their own grief in their own way, just as you need to deal with yours. All right? And so just remember, grief comes in so many forms. If you feel a loss for something, grief happens. Whether that grief process takes a day, it takes a few hours, or it takes years. Allow it. Allow it to go through the process, okay? Get through those emotions, but respect them for what they are. So yes, if you're unmasking, you're going to appear like a different person now. And quite frankly, you are. Just as I am. I'm not who I was portraying, because who I was portraying was a character of survival. And it was in efforts of acceptance and capitalistic success. That's what it was for. I need to be able to go work a certain way. I need to be able to be involved with family a certain way, raise a family a certain way. I need to be able to do stuff a certain way. That turns life into a job, and that sucks. So now you bury yourself. You bury your human self. So I have some, I could go on and on about this, because acknowledging, accepting grief as part of the experience for both yourself and those around you is very important, actually. And if you're willing to recognize what's going on around you and within you, you will be able to process more quickly, more likely. You will be able to move on more quickly, more likely, as well as those around you, because you're acknowledging the actual pain. They are losing somebody that they thought was a certain way. They are. That's valid. So you can't invalidate their feelings either. The conflict comes with the resolution to that acknowledgement. And that's what I'm really talking about. Does that mean that you guys talk through it, you process those emotions, and then you come together with reconciliation and move on with a better version of what that relationship will be, because both of you are being your authentic selves? Or does that mean that somebody can't hack it and it's not right and the relationship needs to dissolve? And if that's the case, then that is the most appropriate thing to have happen, because guess what? You unmasking as the late diagnosed autistic, the person you were isn't you. So that relationship can't be authentic without you being authentic, because you're playing a character. So it's okay. It hurts if you have to lose somebody. majorly sometimes, like major, up to, you know, parents, siblings, spouses, partners. It can all happen. You can lose anybody at any time over these things. You can also lose them over a lot of other things too. So accept it. Accept that grief is part of this process, and that includes those around you. You accept that part, you honor it for what it is, you bring to light what's going on, you even recognize the different stages, and it will help. It will help. All right, I'm going to quit yapping your ear off, but thank you for listening. I hope this hits somebody where they need it, because I know there's a lot of people who struggle, and it's okay. I'm struggling too. I feel like venting this out is part of my process as well. But know that I'm doing this because I love myself and I love you guys.